Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630.
7:36 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. It's Brian Wilson and Larry O'Connor. Coming up in the next hour, we'll be talking to Michigan State Rep Eric Nesbitt. You may say, well, why would we want to do that? Well, that's because there was a really, really important right-to-work vote in the state yesterday, and the Michigan is now headed to become a right-to-work state. He was part of that process. We'll get his perspective. And by the way, tremendous protest there in Michigan as they cast this ballot. People were getting beat up.
Yes, Brian Wilson, is the biggest story really coming out of yesterday, and that's the biggest domestic story at least. But there's a lot of stuff going on internationally, too, that we really do need to touch on. The biggest story internationally this morning is that last night, overnight, while you were sleeping, North Korea launched a long-range rocket. This is directly ignoring warnings from the United Nations as well as the United States. They are continuing their very aggressive stance internationally. And joining us now to talk about this and many other aspects of foreign affairs in the state of play, as it were, under the second term of President Obama is Katie McFarland, our very good friend. Hello, Katie. Good morning.
Good morning.
So talk to me about this very defiant move from the North Korean government. What should we be worried about, and what are we doing about it?
Okay, this is a really big deal.
It is.
There are only 3 countries which have this technical capability, the ability to send a missile from their country to another country around the world. That's China, Russia, and, of course, the United States, and it's now North Korea. North Korea has just successfully tested an intercontinental range missile. In other words, something that they could fire from North Korea and it could land in the United States. It's also, so it's a matter of time before it has the ability to put a small nuclear warhead, and we think they have several rudimentary nuclear devices, to put a small nuclear weapon on the top of that warhead and have the ability to threaten nuclear war against the United States. Now, why is that important? It's important for a whole lot of reasons. One, it means the North Korean leadership is now firmly in place and isn't going anywhere soon. Don't expect them to now become big reformers. But the real reason it's important is, you and I are going Christmas shopping this week. Well, the Iranians are going Christmas shopping. And where do they buy stuff? They buy it in the North Korean Arms Bazaar. The North Koreans and the Iranians have had a long and close relationship in all of this testing. For example, Iran has an intermediate range missile, and it's really a North Korean missile. The Iranians bought it from them, repainted the side, named it, gave it a new name, and said, that's our Iranian missile. So I think it's only a matter of time before North Korea sells this technology to the Iranians.
I take the fact that this missile could now technically reach the west coast of the United States, and therefore is something we should be concerned about. A lot of people in the region should be concerned. But according to NORAD, this missile, this 3-stage missile, actually was able to get something into orbit.
Yeah.
What it is not clear, but that is even more concerning, it seems to me.
Yes, it is. And now why? Because let's assume that this 3-stage rocket missile that they fired got a satellite into space. That's how you send a satellite into space. You send it with a missile. It sends a satellite. The satellite gets way high up in orbital range, and then the missile drops off and the satellite remains. Now, the satellite weighs something, and if the North Koreans have a missile, a rocket that can put is strong enough and capable enough to put a satellite into space, it's also capable of putting a nuclear warhead. You can get a nuclear warhead down small enough so that it's about the size of a satellite. And so if they can carry something into space, presumably a satellite, they can also carry a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, and so that's what they proved last night. I go back to the election of 2008. I remember during the debates, President Obama was asked, would you be willing to meet separately without precondition during the first year of administration with the leaders of Iran, Syria, Venezuela, Cuba, and North Korea? And he said he would. And I remember he mocked the idea that we would put preconditions on talks with countries like this because he said the notion that somehow not talking to countries is punishment to them, which has been the guiding diplomatic principle of this administration, the Bush administration, is ridiculous. It was a laugh line. It was an applause line. Well, of course, he hasn't had those talks that he promised he would have. But he has tried to engage in these countries, hasn't he? Do we have anything to show for the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State, their attempts at engagement with countries like North Korea or Syria or any of the other hostile nations?
Well, I haven't really tried. I mean, Syria is a different thing, but North Korea and Iran the hand of friendship, the, wanting to negotiate in good faith. We may want to do that, but they don't want to do that. North Korea...
What's in it for them? Yeah.
Well, what's in it for them unless they can get something for it? Now, if North Korea thinks that we're coming bearing gifts, sure, they'll talk to us. But they want to... Far more important for North Korea is the successful launch that they've just had than food or fuel oil or all the stuff.
They can basically hold us ransom now, right? Basically, you just said they're on the market. Iran's on the market for this thing. North Korea can say, lift the sanctions, give us aid, let us back into the world community despite how we treat our people in our country, or else we will sell this to Iran.
Yeah, and what they've done, they've accomplished several things. They've made themselves now completely invulnerable to anybody wanting to attack them.
Mm-hmm.
Because who's going to challenge them? They've got nuclear weapons. What could they do with them? South Korea, its southern neighbor, mortal enemy, right? Brother but mortal enemy. South Korea's tried to launch missiles like this, and they've failed. So North Korea has now joined an amazing fraternity in the world, United States, China, and Russia, and now North Korea. So it has the ability now, its leadership is now invulnerable to attack by anybody. They've just pulled off a major coup, the young Korean leader. So he's cemented into his position of authority and power in his own country. He's not going to be a reformer anytime soon.
Now, there have been a couple of stories since we talked to you last out of Benghazi, but the latest thing out of Benghazi is that apparently we now know that we were not able to even fire one single shot in defense of the consulate there in Benghazi, and that attack, by the way, of course, killed our U.S. ambassador to Libya.
The thing about Benghazi is it's sort of what happened before, what happened during, what happened after. We're never really going to probably learn any. If there are any lessons anybody learned from why we weren't prepared enough and why we didn't, as you just said, even offer one bullet in defense of our own people, we'll probably never know the answer to that. The important thing for me going forward is what happened after. Why have we not retaliated? We know where the al-Qaeda training camps are in eastern Libya. We know who pulled this off. I mean, the guy was bragging at a luxury hotel in Benghazi while he was ordering his strawberry frappe. We know who these people are, and we've not retaliated against them. Go back and look at what bin Laden said about why they did September 11th, why they felt emboldened. Because they had the 1998 bombings of two East American embassies in East Africa and the bombing of the USS Cole destroyer. And as a result, the United States did nothing to retaliate or to respond. Al-Qaeda and bin Laden felt emboldened. They said, America, you can attack America. They won't do anything about it. They're a paper tiger. Let's go for September 11th and the Twin Towers.
Brian, this is why Katie McFarland is so good. She actually knows what a terrorist ordered as a beverage.
That's right.
In Libya. You don't get that kind of a strawberry frappe.
And it speaks a lot to that guy and his choices. It tells us a lot about him.
Well, but here's the problem is that now Al-Qaeda says, look, we just killed 4 Americans and attacked U.S.
And did nothing.
And there are no repercussions.
And what's next?
Yeah,
Chemical, biological, New York subways?
And what I like, KT, is she asks great questions. That is the penultimate question. 7:45. Thanks.